Yeah, and I have just one more question that I think would be good for all the panelists to answer, which is connected to the idea of the future. Well, and this question is similar to what I've often heard from my peers as well. It's a horrific world to live in. Why subject children to it? If the world is coming to an end, why bother to perpetuate the generations? Which I thought was an interesting connection with whatever was just shared as well. Yeah, panelists, please, what are your thoughts on why do you bother bringing a child into this world that is full of suffering, climate change, and sometimes people are even advocating that you don't have children because children are a huge carbon footprint to the climate. So do you want to share some thoughts on things like this, having children in a dying world?
I think it's a very bleak picture being painted of the world. There's so much beauty in the world if you want to live life looking at the world. Right? You need to find all these beauties in the world. Yeah, end of the world, nobody knows when's the end of the world. And there was a man, the story, there was a man who was planting a seed. And the friend came by, you're going to die soon, you're old. Why bother to plant a seed? Say, well, the seed can grow into a tree and it will feed all other generations. Why shouldn't I do that? I don't have to do it for myself. Because, the tree, maybe like a mango tree, takes about 7-8 years and you're already like 90 years old. Why you're doing all these things for, that kind of thing, But the world is beautiful. There are lots of things in this beautiful world that we can actually enjoy. And our children can grow up enjoying all these beautiful moments that we have with families, with the environment, with the nature. Don't worry about the global warming, all that coming, water's going to cover Singapore, whatever. It's not going to happen.
Firstly, I don't know whether the question is historically accurate. My grandmother grew up in the era of World War II, and she brought me up. I think part of the philosophy behind that question is sometimes an unchallenged view of how we magnify our own problems. We think our own problems are so important, we think our problems are very big, we think the problems in our generation is insurmountable. And I think if we read a little bit about history, I'm not a historian, but I think if we read a little bit about history, I think that view needs to be challenged. And it may be a reflection of our self-absorption rather than reality. Having said that, there is some truth in the sense that we are moving into a world where things change much more rapidly. I grew up in a generation where there was a famous thinking, I think, therefore I am. And then now we are in an era where I consume, therefore I hope to become. And I think this is where we need to be careful about the ideas that we are putting into our heads. So number one, be accurate. Number two, exercise some degree of discernment into the ideas that we put into our heads. And then move on with the confidence that we can perpetuate good ideas as well as perpetuate our DNA.
I guess, following upon what my fellow panelists have said, actually, it is pretty troubling if people come to a point, where you're actually viewing life in such a sad way. It speaks to the moral environment that you're living in society, as well as one's own experience of one's family growing up, I suppose. It says something about that. And in a way, if it comes from a position of brokenness, then I think that if that kind of statement comes from a position of brokenness, then there is healing that needs to take place. But in a way, if one does not feel called, and with a sense of purpose to raise the next generation, then perhaps even if one has the opportunity, in other words, there needs to be a sense of calling, even though people can also grow into it. So I guess, people who believe that way may not have children, and then it would end there.